The sun hung low over the dusty streets of the small western town, casting long shadows across the wooden buildings. Life here moved slowly, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else, and secrets were as rare as a rainstorm in summer. The air smelled faintly of leather, timber, and smoke from the few chimneys still burning. At the center of the town, in front of the general store and saloon, stood a man tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a worn brown cowboy hat and a brown vest over a crisp white shirt. His eyes, sharp and steady, scanned the horizon as if waiting for something or someone. Behind him a woman stood, her long dark hair flowing over the black corset, dress that clung to her slender frame. She looked equally determined. Yet there was a softness in her gaze, a quiet longing for something she could not yet name. The man's hands settled lightly around her waist, protective yet gentle. They did not speak, for words seemed unnecessary in that moment. The world had slowed for them. Even the faint rustle of wind through the wooden planks of the town seemed to pause, allowing them a few sacred seconds together. Rumors had already begun to stir in the town about the newcomer, a woman unlike any they had seen before, bold, mysterious, and carrying an air of quiet strength. And the man with her, well, he was a stranger too, but one whose presence demanded attention. Together they were a striking image, a bond forming in the silence of a town that had never seen romance so raw, so immediate. As the sun dipped further, casting the mountains behind them in a warm golden glow, the couple turned their gaze to the horizon. There was a journey ahead, unspoken, uncertain, and full of danger, but also full of promise. And in that quiet western town, with the mountains standing tall like eternal witnesses, the sun rose slowly over the dusty town, painting the wooden facades of the buildings with a golden light. The morning air was crisp, and the scent of pine from the distant mountains mixed with the earthy aroma of the town's unpaved streets. The townsfolk were beginning their daily routines, sweeping porches, stacking barrels, and tending to horses. Yet amid the familiar sounds of everyday life, there was a tension that hung like a cloud, an unspoken danger approaching the quiet town. The man, tall and steadfast, stepped onto the wooden sidewalk, his hat casting a shadow over his determined eyes. The woman followed, her black dress flowing gently as she walked, her gaze fixed firmly ahead. Though she had never been part of a western town before, she carried herself with confidence, as if the rough streets and wild winds had always belonged to her. Together they moved through the town like a force to be reckoned with. Rumors of outlaws traveling through the valley had reached their ears the previous night. Whispered warnings told of bandits who preyed on travelers, striking without mercy. The couple exchanged a brief glance, understanding that danger was near. Yet there was a quiet bravery in their eyes, a determination to face whatever came their way together. As they walked, townsfolk stared from windows and doorways, some with curiosity, some with admiration. The couple had become the center of attention without even trying, two souls entwined, standing strong against the uncertainty of a harsh and unforgiving land. The woman's hand brushed against the man's arm, a silent reminder of their connection. Words were unnecessary. Their hearts spoke volumes. Suddenly, the clatter of hooves echoed down the street. A group of riders appeared on the horizon, dust kicking up behind them. The townsfolk froze, fear evident in their eyes. The couple stopped in their tracks. The man's hand instinctively went to the holster at his hip, fingers brushing against the handle of his revolver. The woman stepped slightly in front of him, protective yet fearless. The riders drew closer, their faces hidden by wide-brimmed hats, their intentions unclear. The tension thickened, the air heavy with anticipation. As they entered the town, the leader dismounted, revealing a rugged face marked by sun and scars, eyes cold and calculating. He spoke, his voice carrying across the street. "We're here for the gold. Hand it over and no one gets hurt." The man's jaw tightened, his grip firm on his weapon. The woman's eyes narrowed, her mind racing through the possibilities. She had never faced such danger before, yet she stood her ground, knowing that fleeing was not an option. The townsfolk held their breath, waiting to see who would make the first move. A tense silence followed, broken only by the wind rustling through the streets. The couple exchanged a glance, an unspoken plan passing between them. They would not let fear dictate their actions. The man stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "This town belongs to its people. You'll take nothing from us." The leader sneered, raising his hand as a signal to his men. The standoff was inevitable. Time seemed to stretch, every second charged with the possibility of violence. Yet in the midst of the fear, there was also a strange beauty, a reminder that courage often shines brightest when tested against the darkness. First chapter of their story had begun. The town had barely recovered from the standoff with the outlaws when a new tension settled over the streets, like a heavy fog. The sun dipped low behind the jagged mountains, casting long shadows over the wooden buildings. The couple, still bound by a growing, unspoken bond, stood at the edge of town, their eyes scanning the horizon. The danger was not gone. It had only shifted, lurking beyond the hills and in the hearts of those who coveted power. The woman, her black dress catching the last rays of sunlight, felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. She had come to this town uncertain and cautious, yet every challenge they faced together seemed to draw them closer. The man's steady presence behind her was both a comfort and a reminder that trust, once given, could be powerful enough to change everything. A distant whistle pierced the silence, signaling a messenger from the neighboring town. He brought urgent news. A rival gang was approaching, larger and more ruthless than the last. The couple exchanged a glance, understanding the stakes had grown higher. They would have to defend not only themselves, but the people who had quietly come to rely on their courage. As night fell, the town prepared for what seemed inevitable. Fires were lit, barricades were hastily erected, and whispers of strategies filled the air. The couple moved through the town, offering guidance, reassurance, and calm determination. The woman's hand found the man's, and in that touch, there was a silent promise. They would face the storm together, no matter the cost. The first clash came under a moonlit sky. Gunfire echoed through the streets, horses neighed in panic, and dust rose like smoke from a battlefield. The couple moved with precision and instinct, covering each other, protecting the townsfolk, and striking with a courage born of necessity. Amid the chaos, their connection deepened, hearts beating in unison, every glance and movement a testament to trust and love forged under fire. Hours passed like minutes. When the last outlaw fell and silence returned, the town stood battered but unbroken. The couple, exhausted yet triumphant, surveyed the quiet streets. Their eyes met, and without words, they acknowledged the unshakable bond that had formed between them. In the midst of danger, they had discovered not only their own strength but the depth of their feelings for each other. The mountains in the distance glowed softly with the first light of dawn. For the first time, the couple allowed themselves a moment of peace. They had survived the storm, but more importantly, they had faced it together. And as they stood in the heart of the town, the future, uncertain and wild, felt just a little brighter, just a little more theirs.